President Dr. R.K.Raghavan, a person whom all of us in the civil service have always looked up to, and I'm no exception. Dr. Sita Sundar, Secretary, Dr. Sudha Seshayyan, Dr. K.S. Balasubramanian, Dr. V. Kameshwari, distinguished authors, scholars, and donors, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a great honor to be present here today on the occasion of the 75th Anniversary Celebrations of the Kuppuswami Sastri Research Institute. And I thank President Dr. R.K.Raghavan for his very generous words and the Director, Secretary, and other office bearers for this invitation. I'm equally delighted to release a range of scholarly works and meet the distinguished authors, scholars, and donors. Let me start on a personal note. It was the Kuppuswami Sastri Research Institute which published the book titled Tattvarusandhanam of my aunt, Professor R. Shankari, in 2008. She was a Sanskrit professor. She had almost completed her doctoral thesis when she tragically passed away. Her son, Sri Ramamurthy, took it upon himself to convert her dreams and years of research into a book. And it was KSRI which came forward to publish it. This gesture of KSRI has meant a lot to my family. And this year, coincidentally, is also her birth centenary year. Allow me to pay tribute, my humble tribute, to Professor Kuppuswami Sastri, an extraordinary personality who devoted his entire life to Sanskrit, Indology, and unraveling the greatness of India. It is people like him who have kept the greatness of our heritage and civilization alive, especially during the colonial period. Thanks to his vision, our vibrant intellectual and philosophical moorings have been nurtured. I also pay tribute to his family and the dedicated scholars of KSRI for keeping the tradition of knowledge and intellectual rigor alive in our part of the world. The Journal of Oriental Research, started by Professor Kuppuswami Sastri in 1927, and the various books which has been published attests to this fact. Friends, when I was visiting a colleague of mine as a young diplomat, I noticed that in his house, a map of India, first published in 1867. It was published by Alvin J. Johnson and Son, New York, in the Johnson's New Illustrated Family Atlas of the World. The title of the map was Hindustan and Farther India. The map doesn't say East Asia or Southeast Asia or the Indo-Pacific as we are familiar today. All this geographical space was just Farther India. This Hindustan and Farther India map covers a very wide arc which stretches from the current boundaries of India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, to Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Singapore, Malaysia, to Vietnam. Incidentally, the atlas in which the map was published was awarded the first prize at the Universal Exposition in Paris in 1867 and in 1878. Now, to an erudite audience like yours, I don't have to say that our influence actually stretched even farther into Indonesia and farther into Tibet, into Central Asia and beyond. But why I mention this is to give you an idea of how much mind space India occupied even 150 years ago. And this is an American map. This farther India didn't come from conquest or by force or by subjugation or even by just trade and commerce. It had come by India capturing the imagination of the peoples of the world. It had come from the permeation of Indian thought, practices, and ideas. It had come from an acknowledgement from these peoples of India's civilizational contribution to them over centuries. While we talk about the clash of civilizations in the West, and we are witnessing it even now, here is an example of the harmony of civilizations in the East. And at its center was the Indian civilization. Interestingly, this map actually follows the contours of the mandala of Jambudvipa, where India or Bharatvarsha and the Indian Ocean surrounding it are seen as an interconnected geopolitical, geoeconomic, and geocultural space. And it is up to us to reclaim this space in all its dimensions. However, colonialism stripped India of its riches and, even worse, diminished our ability to think outside a Eurocentric world and to appreciate our own contribution to the world of thought and ideas. We have now tried to rediscover our mojo. The concepts and doctrines in our ancient texts have contributed much, both subconsciously and consciously, to how we think and act even today, including in the realm of foreign policy. Since I have been a diplomat and a practitioner of foreign relations, I would like to focus on this aspect a little bit. We have had a plethora of extraordinary texts over centuries, like the Arthashastra, the Niti Sara, the Agni Purana, the Sukra Niti, in even our own Tirukural, which are dwelt on various aspects of statecraft and foreign policy. It is not a coincidence that the diplomatic enclave in New Delhi has been named Chanakyapuri, an acknowledgement of the contribution of Chanakya to Indian statecraft and diplomacy. And over the last century or so, our scholars and practitioners have been able to cull out the wisdom from our texts. Our leaders have sought to apply them to real-life situations, including famously the use of ahimsa and satyagraha by Mahatma Gandhi during our independence movement. Let us also not forget for a moment the contribution of Buddhist thought and philosophy to our collective thinking, including the diplomatic outreach of Emperor Ashoka or the knowledge outreach of the Nalanda University, or the symbolic outreach of the Buddhist Panchashil inscribed in the India-China Agreement of 1954. But at a more fundamental level, what we need to ask ourselves is whether we are indeed incorporating our ancient wisdom into our contemporary policies, whether we understand their meaning in the contemporary context, and whether we need to modify or change such ancient doctrines to better address contemporary issues. For example, India adopted Satyameva Jayate, truth alone triumphs, as its national motto on January 26, 1950. This wisdom has come to us from the Mundaka Upanishad. It is inscribed at the base of our national emblem. However, the question is, are we a more truthful nation now than what we were in 1947? Of course, my question is only rhetorical. I don't expect you to answer it. However, at a more practical level, I have another example. We have adopted another great thought from the Maha Upanishad, Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. The world is one family. This is widely regarded as a great contribution to our thinking on foreign policy, and rightly so. The world is indeed one family. In fact, when I was representing India in the UN Security Council, I was the president of the Security Council in August 2021. During our presidency, I was very keen to have one high-level meeting on Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam so that this thought gets embedded in the council text. But I realized later that the government had something even more significant in store. It adopted Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam as the theme of India's G20 presidency for this year. One Earth, one family, one future. And I'm delighted that they did so. However, it is equally important for us to understand where this concept, Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, can be used and how it can be used. For example, when I was Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, I was in charge of India's assistance to other countries, particularly the Global South. We were in fact disbursing billions of US dollars as lines of credit, grant assistance, etc. And one of the guiding principles for our assistance to other countries is adopting a demand-driven approach. That is one of our guiding principles. And what it means is our assistance will be guided by the priorities of the receiving country. And it will be driven by what that country wants, rather than by what we want to give. This is what we call the demand-driven approach. So I mentioned this to my then External Affairs Minister, Srimati Sushma Swaraj, about how the concept of Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam fits very well with our assistance program for our neighborhood, Africa, and the Global South. So when I mentioned this to her, she immediately said, Tirumurthi ji, be very clear of its meaning when you apply the concept of Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam to your assistance to other countries. So I was naturally caught by surprise. And I asked her, what is this about? And she explained that when we talk about Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, we talk of a family. That you're all aware. And in a family, let us say there is a mother and two children. And one is a well-fed, stocky child, and another one, an emaciated child, let us say. The well-fed child may want one more glass of milk. The emaciated child may not want milk at all. But the mother will ensure that the glass of milk will actually go to the emaciated child. And because that child needs the extra glass of milk. Now, so in a family, the mother gives what the child needs and not necessarily what the child wants and what the child demands. Therefore, Sushma ji said that if you apply the true concept of Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, the world is one family, to our assistance program to other countries, then it cannot be a demand-driven approach, which is driven by what the country wants, but it will be a needs-driven approach. Because a family is all about what one needs and not what one wants. So this conversation made me realize how important it is for us to begin with to understand the true meaning and implication of such concepts from our ancient texts before we apply them to the world of today. In fact, of late, we seem to be adopting an uncritical approach to what we have inherited. And I am struck by some of the recent writings on foreign policy, which goes to the extent of mentioning that even Advaita philosophy or the concepts of, the Atman and the Paramatman and other concepts are somehow shaping our foreign policy. While in a cosmic sense, they may be true, because we are all individuals with our own beliefs, we should be careful not to make simplistic linkages between our inherited wisdom and contemporary challenges of foreign policy. More importantly, we should not downplay the unique contribution of contemporary Indian diplomacy of the 20th and the 21st century to successfully face new and unprecedented challenges of today. The other trend which I notice is to infer from our ancient text that in foreign policy, The only thing that matters is realpolitik and nothing more. In fact, people say that Arthashastra hardly considers any question as immoral, thereby hinting that morality is somehow not too relevant to foreign policy. Kautilya, in fact, is considered as the first great political realist. At a more superficial level, we even have people extolling the virtues of deception in warfare and diplomacy by pointing to the action of Lord Krishna in the Mahabharata. So let there be no doubt that national interest comes first and foremost in our thought and action, and that there is some hard-nosed realpolitik which is involved. But foreign policy is equally about contributing to the greater good of humanity, and it is not bereft of morality and good faith, especially for a civilization like India. For example, there was no realpolitik when India spearheaded the charge against apartheid. It was just plain wrong, and we rightly opposed it and rid the world of apartheid. Friends, inherited wisdom of our ancestors undoubtedly has its strength in a multipolar world. That's what people are talking about, where the nation states, they indulge in traditional conflicts. But if conflicts go beyond the capacity of one or two nation states, and if it is global in nature, so to tackle global conflicts and challenges, we need global solutions, we need new thinking, new paradigm, and reinvent ourselves. In effect, what we need is a synthesis between the old and the new. I will give you 3 recent examples of new challenges, such as where the synthesis between the old and the new is required. These examples are obviously not exhaustive but illustrative. The first set of such challenges relates to issues which are, as I said, global in nature. The world of today is far more globalized than any time in history. Many of the challenges now need global solutions, not just regional or national solutions. Climate change and environment, for example, energy, sustainable development, technology, especially cyber, and of course pandemics like COVID-19. These are all bigger than what a single nation state can deal with. The fact that India has always been open to cross-pollination, quite literally being at the crossroads of history and geography, has made it easier for us to embrace globalization. Since they are not traditional challenges but global challenges, we need to bring together the wisdom of the past and the new doctrines of the present. For example, the way Indian wisdom has always treated environment, climate change, and ecosystems as an integrated whole has ensured its sustainability and is a pointer for the future, even as we use modern technology to harness the sun for renewable energy and established the International Solar Alliance. For all this to happen, collaboration for the common good should be the norm, and conflicts an aberration. Instead, it is just the opposite right now. The second set of challenges arise from the politicization of religion at the UN and at the international level. One dimension is the contemporary forms of religiophobia against non-Abrahamic religions. It is no secret that the UN has traditionally mirrored Christian values. In fact, numerous Christian sculptures and symbols dot the UN. A rare exception is the 11th century idol of Surya, the sun god, gifted by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in 1982 to the United Nations. And it stands majestically overlooking the corridors leading to the UN General Assembly. However, on 15th March last year, the UN General Assembly passed a resolution on the International Day for Combating Islamophobia, sponsored by the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. For the first time, combating hatred against one specific religion was elevated to an international day. With Islam being added to the Christian and the Jewish mix in the UN, the hate against the three Abrahamic religions, namely the Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and Christianophobia, got exclusive reference in UN texts with the support of the West and Islamic countries. And let me state clearly here that we should rightly condemn all phobias against all religions. Let there be absolutely no doubt about it. What is effectively happening is the division on religious lines, Abrahamic and non-Abrahamic. What I have been emphasizing in my recent writings is that these phobias have led to a religious alliance of convenience of Abrahamic religions. However, attacks against non-Abrahamic religions have actually increased exponentially in the last decade. Examples abound, particularly in the recent past. You have all seen violent attacks against Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, and others, including their places of worship. This hatred is seen in our neighborhood and is already spreading across the West, especially in the US, UK, Canada, Australia, etc. Motivated anti-India elements like the Khalistanis and Islamic extremists and radicals are only taking advantage of this, and they have launched attacks abroad. India was the first country to alert the UN Security Council of this in October 2021. And Prime Minister himself took up this matter with his Australian counterpart, including this morning. The world cannot afford to see itself being divided vertically on religious lines. All religiophobias need to be treated equally. In fact, in the West, hate and disaffection is being spread against their own citizens who are practicing non-Abrahamic faiths. Nothing can be more self-defeating. It is short-sighted and dangerous. But even more worrying is the silence of the West on this matter. In spite of our traditional reticence in foreign policy to get involved in religious issues, pluralistic democracies like India will have to take the lead in the matter of contemporary forms of religiophobia. Another dimension to this politicization of religion is the surge of terrorism in the name of religion. In our own neighborhood, in Asia, in the Middle East, and now, of course, even more in Africa. Much as we keep saying that terrorism has no religion, we need to have a robust global approach to tackle and eliminate radicalization and terror perpetrated in the name of religion. The third set of issues pertain to challenges which are ironically agnostic to religion, philosophy, or even the concept of a nation state. This pertains to the march of technology, especially cutting-edge technology and artificial intelligence. Here, we don't even know who our enemy is. And ironically, again, we may be our own enemy. And our dependence on this is so much now that every activity of our lives is guided by this. How we use technology collectively for the common good of humanity and counter its adverse and dangerous fallout is an uncharted territory and the challenge of the future, which probably goes beyond what our inherited wisdom envisaged. Friends, never has the need to collaborate with each other been more important, and never has the world been so divided. These contemporary challenges cannot be met only by a reinterpretation of Arthashastra or other ancient texts, just as we cannot rely only on new contemporary thought to tackle them. We need a synthesis, and the great service which our scholars and our researchers can do is to synthesize both our past and our present for the sake of our future. I thank KSRI once again for doing me this great honor of inviting me for this really a momentous occasion. Let me conclude by hoping that the idol of Lord Surya inside the UN premises and the bust of Mahatma Gandhi, installed in December 22 in the north lawns of the UN, show us all an inclusive way forward, and to all the UN member states. I thank you once again.
Thank you very much, sir, for your inspiring speech. With your rich experience as an ambassador, you have given us how to look into the concepts of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and also you have guided us for further research in synthesizing the past and present knowledge. We will surely take it up, sir. Thank you very much. Now I request our Director in charge, Dr. K.S. Balasubramanian, to give the vote of thanks.
Namaste to all of you. Just before I start the customary vote of thanks, I would like to invite one important person here who has been leading us for the past 3.5 decades. She should be recognized, honored by all of us. Please give a standing ovation to Dr. Kameshwari. I request Madam Sudhaseshayyan to hand over our memento to her. Thank you. Respected T.S Tirumurthi sir, respected Dr. Sudhaseshayyan, Dr. R.K.Raghavan ji, Dr. Sita Sundar, and all others who have assembled here. I deem it a great privilege to offer word of thanks on behalf of the Kuppuswami Sastri Research Institute. Our foremost gratitude is offered to the great visionary C.V. Krishnaswamy Iyer, who identified the genius in Sri Kuppuswami Sastri and made him the first principal of the Madras Sanskrit College. This paved way for all the subsequent developments of the college and later the institute named after the great scholar Mahamahopadhyaya Kuppuswami Sastri. We are thankful to the successive generations of C.V. Krishnaswamy Iyer for nurturing these institutions all these years. Today, we have had the inaugural session of our 75th anniversary in a grand manner. We are extremely thankful to respected T.S Tirumurthi, who was very cordial to us, and also he readily agreed to inaugurate the 75th anniversary of our institute. Our thanks are due to Dr. Sudhaseshayyan Madam, who amidst her tight schedule agreed to come to our function, which reflects her love for Sanskrit and our culture. We could not have thrived all these years without the support of the philanthropists and sponsors of our publications, endowments, scholarships to our research scholars, preservation of our library books and palm leaf manuscripts. Our sincere thanks to all of them, and we pray thus this continues in future also. All the scholars who have contributed their time and energy deserve our appreciation and thanks. The members of Sri V. Krishnaswamy Iyer Sanskrit Education Trust, whose generosity is immeasurable for our existence in this campus, deserve our heartfelt gratitude. Our special thanks are to Sri V. Srikant, Secretary of the Trust, and also Sri N. Gopal Swami, the President, for helping us in many ways. We are also thankful to them for making available this auditorium for today's function. Sri Ravi and Sri Ramchandran have been our trusted printers for many years and have always delivered our publications in time. Our thanks are due to them. Our governing body members have always stood by us in all our activities. We are extremely thankful to each one of them. We are thankful to the press and the media for covering our function. To every one of you who have assembled here, we are beholden and we seek the support of everyone. We are also willing to extend all the academic assistance to anyone in the field of Sanskrit and Indology. Thank you all.